The movie kicks off with a confrontation between two factions, one equipped with night vision goggles, systematically defeating their adversaries. Then, the focus shifts to James, sporting a mullet-style haircut, waking up from a long nap. He greets his quiet baby as the babysitter arrives, welcoming her in. Shortly after, James' friends pick him up in a van spacious enough for 5 people. It appears James and his crew are plotting a robbery, armed with various weapons and concealing their identities with masks. Upon reaching the bank, Mike signals the start of the heist. They swiftly overpower some guards, with Mike instilling fear by mutilating one guard's finger. This action secures them access to the vault code, enabling them to seize the cash. James and his companions fill their bags with a hefty sum of money. Thinking the situation is safe, they attempt to leave the bank, only to find the police already positioned outside. A shootout becomes inevitable as the armed officers aim to apprehend James and his crew. Outnumbered and having lost their getaway driver to gunfire, James and his gang strive to evade capture. With more police closing in, they find themselves cornered. Despite their training, the police, led by a determined commander, succeed in neutralizing them as they transport the stolen money. Jack from the group decides to take matters into his own hands and grab the money back. James, meanwhile, tends to his wounded comrade and commandeers a car from a nearby residence. The pursuit ensues, with the police hot on James's trail in his stolen vehicle. The gang employs a clever tactic, switching to another car, throwing off the police. Despite the onset of night, the authorities persist in their search. Now down to 3 members, one of whom is injured, the gang changes clothes, swaps vehicles again, and destroys their previous car. Later that evening, Special Agent Frank Rose arrives, having just returned from Washington. He receives a reprimand for his tardiness and is briefed on the urgency of apprehending the criminals, who have already taken the lives of several officers. Another agent named Giant explains they had to resort to gunfire due to the inability to contact Frank earlier. Recognizing the severity of one gang member's injuries, Frank suggests canvassing local medical facilities, anticipating that the injured criminal will seek medical attention. Frank discovers that one of the criminals, previously known as Fan, is a member of the Venturi family. He speaks with a bank employee who witnessed the robbery, hoping to gather some clues. The employee mentions that some of the gang members may have had accents from Brooklyn, suggesting they could be from that area. As their conversation winds down, Frank receives a call from his son inquiring about his location. However, Giant informs him about a burning vehicle near the river. Frank, accompanied by another agent named Victor, decides to investigate the scene. In the meantime, James pays a visit to an individual named Billy. Billy expresses anger towards James, blaming him for the recent troubles after Billy spoke to the authorities. However, it is revealed that James and another gang member, Mike, had approached Billy to assist them in laundering their stolen money discreetly. Later, Ava, a member of the gang, points the blame at Mike, citing his erratic behavior as the cause of their recent issues. Subsequently, James and Mike agree to take Joan for specialized help, as James trusts her and wants her involvement in their group. Billy is tasked with the responsibility of laundering the stolen money. Meanwhile, Frank arrives at the location where the car was set on fire, hoping to gather information about the criminals who have a background in the military. He is impressed by their strategic thinking and combat abilities. Frank ponders whether there was an accomplice from within, especially considering that the targeted bank had recently relocated and held a significant amount of money. Later on, James safely escorts Joan back to her residence to receive medical care. When Billy contacts him with an update on the money laundering process, James steps away briefly. Clearance suggests that the transaction would proceed more smoothly if James surrendered a portion of his share, to which James agrees. At the same time, Mike devises a plan to offer a bribe to Clearance, with the aim of ensuring that Joan receives subpar treatment to avoid impeding their plans. With hesitation, James reluctantly accepts the money, expressing deep concern for Joan's well-being in the absence of proper medical attention. Mike busies himself inspecting his firearm and tallying their finances. Inside a vehicle, Ava inquires about James' return. James reassures her that he will come back soon to pick up Ava and Joan, contemplating a fresh start in a distant place for a tranquil life with his family. Though touched by his words, their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of two vehicles, the individuals Billy had contacted, led by Brielle. During the money exchange, Mike realizes he is receiving less than what was agreed upon, sparking a dispute. Tensions rise when Brielle's group brandishes weapons, escalating the situation. In a bold move, Mike fires at members of Brielle's team, prompting James to intervene. Mike then pursues a fleeing member of Brielle's group. Their paths intersect with law enforcement once more, but they manage to evade capture this time. Meanwhile, a member of Brielle's team relays the events to their leader, Newsy. Without hesitation, Newsy instructs his crew to take decisive action. Simultaneously, the FBI attempts to gather information from a bank staff member. Agent Frank suspects the employee is holding back because the information provided is too specific. Employing his expertise, Frank successfully convinces the employee to divulge the truth. The employee discloses details about the culprits. One is highly educated and bears a St. Jude tattoo on his neck, while the other is more aggressive and showcases a Marine Corps tattoo displaying Semper V Series in red. Victor promptly reaches out to a contact to uncover their identities and obtains photographs of Mike and James. They discover that these individuals are actually Michael McSeries and Jimmy James Series, who happen to be siblings. Frank and his team spring into action. Victor recalls attempting to apprehend them in the past. Further investigation reveals that the brothers previously served in the military but went AWOL. Frank instructs Giant to publicize their names. Meanwhile, James, Mike, and Ava arrive at Billy's residence. Billy expresses remorse over recent events, highlighting the danger posed by certain individuals. James believes Mike consistently opts for violent solutions and behaves recklessly. Mike retorts that he is unafraid. James puts forward a condition. If they survive their current troubles, he plans to sever his connection with Mike. This provokes intense emotions in Mike, who points out all the support he has provided to James and emphasizes his position as the older brother. The situation escalates when Mike suggests that James has been influenced negatively, leading James to physically confront Mike in a fit of rage. During this confrontation, a member of Newsy's armed group storms in. In a swift turn of events, one of them fatally shoots Billy, captures James and his companions, and exposes the true identities of the brothers. Consequently, their images are circulated in the media as wanted criminals. Giant recollects encountering Ava previously, identifying her as James's partner. In addition, an officer informs them of the elimination of some of Newsy's crew and their affiliates, a development that catches Agent Frank's attention. Aware of Newsy's involvement in money laundering, Frank links Brielle's death to the actions of Mike and James, prompting him to delve deeper into investigating Newsy's illicit activities. As Newsy and his associates arrive on the scene, Mike takes responsibility for the situation in an attempt to placate Newsy, but Newsy remains unmoved. Mike becomes furious when Newsy threatens James, claiming he possesses a significant amount of sulfuric acid for inflicting harm. The violence commences, targeting an individual with the acidic substance. Newsy's intention is to torment Mike first, followed by James. However, James proves to be resilient and swiftly gains the upper hand. Through quick thinking, the pair overpower and defeat Newsy and his accomplices, ultimately resulting in James dealing the decisive blow to Newsy. Meanwhile, Frank and his team are closing in on the group's hiding place. When James and Ava attempt to flee, they encounter interference from a police vehicle. Mike handles the officers and urges James to escape. As Frank, Giant, and Victor arrive at the scene, Mike finds himself in a difficult situation. During a tense pursuit, James witnesses his brother Mike resorting to drastic measures, evoking mixed feelings. Despite past conflicts, James acknowledges his brother's courage. The confrontation escalates, leading to Mike being shot and incapacitated. In a last-ditch effort, Mike attempts to use Victor as a hostage for bargaining power but fails. Agent Frank takes a definitive shot from a distance, ending Mike's life. James and Ava successfully board a bus. Honoring his promise, he informs her about their meeting point on a secluded island and encourages her to depart before him. Meanwhile, back at the crime scene, following a brief discussion with his team, Frank realizes James' death hasn't been confirmed. Giant discovers a pendant in the acid residue, hinting at James' potential demise. Nevertheless, Frank remains skeptical. The following day, he arranges a meeting with Ava. During their conversation, Ava adeptly avoids any mention of James. While Frank doesn't press her further, he requests Victor to arrange a care facility for Joan. Fast forward a few years, we observe James leading a peaceful life on a distant island, reuniting with a frail Joan and Ava. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.